MZTV.
Oh, it's been one of those days, folks, where the pain feels worse today than the week after surgery, and I'm 1 month out, so I don't understand. I'm going back to the doctor here in Fort Lauderdale tomorrow. Don't you hate this topic? Won't you be glad when I can stop talking about it? I know I will be. It just feels like a third-degree sunburn constantly on from the shoulder to my side of my face. It's nerve pain is a strange thing. You can't really, it's not in a spot. It's just like everywhere. It just radiates heat, or should I say fire. Anyway, there's that. Now, what I want to do today, and let's see if I can make a short show. I never seem to be able to. I'm going to really try today. I might have to by necessity. But what I want to do is look at the famous Jeremiah 31 passage, the New Covenant. Show you some detail there that maybe you've never seen before, and then pull in scripture from our evangel, and I'll show you how God has a similar habit. He likes to pull his God card when he makes outrageous promises. He pulls his God card out. I just love it. If I were God, I would do this too. It ain't bragging if you can do it, you know. So here we go. This is the famous New Covenant passage. There's other interesting things in here internally, which I'm going to look at. The relative and the absolute viewpoint is fascinating. I've never seen that before. So I'm in verse 31 of chapter 31 of Jeremiah. Behold, the days are coming, averring is Yahweh, when I will contract a new covenant with the house of Israel. Yeah. Can I interject something here? Here we go. Those days are still coming. God said this back when Jeremiah wrote this prophecy, so 4,000 years ago. The days are still coming. This is the way God looks at it. A day is 1,000 years. 1,000 years is as a day. Behold, the days are coming. Averring is Yahweh. This is one of those great concordant words. It's stronger than say. People say, why doesn't concordant just say saying is Yahweh? What's just averring? I have to look it up in the dictionary. That really ticks me off. Well, it's James Coram, since deceased, but the former business manager of the Concordant Publishing concern. Whenever I would complain about having to look words up in the dictionary from the Concordant Literal New Testament translation, he would say, look them up, it'll do you good. Look them up, it'll do you good. Averring, it's a specific Greek word, Hebrew word in this case, although averring also appears in the New Testament. To state forcefully. This is more than just saying something. This is like sowing the idea of God swearing by himself that he will do something. Only it's captured in one word, aver. Behold, the days are coming, averring is Yahweh, when I will contract a new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah. Not like the covenant which I contracted with their fathers. And he admitted that he contracted a covenant with them. The old covenant, it had to come first. God did it completely to prove a point that they were helpless without him. But look how he describes it. Not like the covenant which I contracted with their fathers in the day I held fast onto their hand to bring them forth from the land of Egypt, which covenant of mine they themselves annulled while I was possessor over them, averring is Yahweh. Fascinating passage. All the constraining, all the things that Yahweh is doing with them, he's describing them as outside force. Like this, verse 32. Not like the covenant which I contracted with their fathers in the day I held fast under their hand to bring them forth. You picture God pulling them like a mother pulling a child into church or away from the circus. I held fast under their hand to bring them forth. Now he presents it as it's their fault. Which covenant of mine they themselves annulled? This is completely the relative viewpoint. They annulled it, yet they annulled it while he was holding their hands. And then this, while I was possessor over them, averring is Yahweh. So while he was the possessor of them, It's still an outside force, the possessor of them, like I own them, I hold their hands. While he's doing both these things, they themselves annulled the covenant. But they did it while you were possessor of them and while you were holding their hand. Makes me kind of think that God is responsible, and he's taking responsibility, although in a kind of a backhanded, crafty way, taking responsibility for the failure of the old covenant. And of course, he is taking responsibility for the failure of the old covenant, even while recognizing, yes, they themselves did it, but admitting I was holding their hands the whole time, and I was the possessor over them the whole time, averring is Yahweh. And it was a necessary prerequisite for the new covenant, which is going to be internal, as we will see. None of this holding hands business. None of this pulling them into the wilderness from Egypt. None of this, even as strong a word as it is, possessing them. It's more than that. For this is the covenant, verse 33, which I shall contract with the house of Israel after those days, averring is Yahweh. Averring to the left, averring to the right. Averring in the morning and averring at night. God is saying this forcefully right down the line. I will put my law within them. Ho, ho. You see how this is so much more than holding their hand or even possessing them, like surrounding them with his ownership, putting a fence around them, around them. No, this is, I will put my law within them, and I shall write it on their heart. I will become their Elohim. This is prophecy. And they shall become my people. Reminds me of the Rodney Paris Martin Zender special that we published on Sunday, Matthew 5:48, misquoted by the Mennonite teacher. Did you listen to that one? Did you watch that from Sunday? If not, go to it. I'll have my sister put the link down here again. She probably put it there yesterday. He was misquoting Matthew 5:48 from the King James Version. Be ye perfect. Be ye perfect. As though this is a command, and it sure as hell sounds like one in the KJV, to be perfect. But the Concordance says, ye shall be perfect. This goes from a challenge. The mistranslation in the King James Version presents this as a challenge, be ye perfect. And how many people reading that who aren't even Israelites have taken that as their cue to try to be perfect? But what a difference between that and you shall be perfect is a promise of God. This is called prophecy. You shall be perfect. Oh, how can you tell? Well, because I'm God and I'm going to write my law in your heart. I will become their Elohim and they shall become my people. You shall be perfect. Matthew 5:48. I will become their Elohim. They shall become my people. Love that. But you see how interesting that was. I thought it was fascinating where he leads them by the hand in the Old Covenant, possesses them in the Old Covenant, but even sandwiched in between those two bookends, taken by the hand and possessing them, they themselves, is relative, as though God is not behind the whole thing. Of course he's behind the whole thing. It was necessary for that first covenant to fail. It was designed to fail. This wasn't a design flaw. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't an accident. It was meant to happen. For this is the covenant which I shall contract with them. Yes, I just read that, did I not? Verse 34. No longer shall they teach each man his associate, and each man his brother, saying, Know Yahweh, for all shall know me. There's that word shall again. All shall know me. From the smallest of them to the greatest of them, averring is Yahweh. Now he pulls his God card out in verse 35. Because this sounds fantastic, what he's going to do. He's basically going to invade their world. I thought God was a gentleman. That's what the Christians tell us. God's a gentleman. He won't invade your world. He won't do anything you don't want to do. You have to decide you want to do it. You have a free will. God's going to wait for you to decide. And yet this, I shall write my law on their hearts. I will put my law within them. I will become their Elohim. This is not God being a gentleman. This is God invading their world. You might make the case that the old covenant was God being a gentleman, but even then, Christians won't even acknowledge that God pulls you here and there. God's admitting to pulling them, taking them by the hand, leading them out of Egypt, and possessing them. Believers in free will don't believe God possesses them. In some loose way, they say, well, he's God over us, but then within that control, they have control. It's completely inconsistent and hypocritical. But Christians never have any problem with being inconsistent or hypocritical. Now pulls the God card, because this sounds fantastic, what he's going to do in days to come. You ready for this? Thus says Yahweh, who provides the sun for light by day. Hi, my name's God. Here's my business card. I provide the sun. I made the sun through my own son, Jesus Christ, and it provides light by day. That's me. You know how during the day you can see stuff because of the sun? That's me. The statutes of the moon and the stars for light by night. I made the stars, referencing Genesis. Who splits apart the sea so that its billows clamor. Yahweh of hosts is his name. Talk about pulling out the God card, lest you think he might fail at this. And we still have people today practicing a stupidity called replacement theology, where God is not going to finish what he started with literal Israelites. Now he's going to fulfill his promises to Israel metaphorically and another people who aren't Israelites. The Christians think it's them. They think they're spiritual Israel. But let me ask them this. God says in verse 36, if these statutes should be removed from before me, that is the statutes of the sun rising every day, the moon and the stars shining by night, if these statutes should be removed from me, averring as Yahweh, then the seed of Israel shall cease to be a nation before me for all the days. Ho, well. The sun has not stopped shining by day, except in Ohio. The moon has not stopped shining. The stars have not stopped shining by night. These statutes have continued. Therefore, God is still the God of Israel, and he shall fulfill these promises with Israel, not with another people who are called spiritual Israel. What they mean to say is metaphoric Israel, but they're not smart enough to understand that it's metaphoric Israel. They think they're spiritual Israel. They think they're the replacement for Israel. And yet these statutes still remain. So, swing and a miss. Nice try, but God is not finished with Israel. And in the days to come, he will write his law on their hearts. Verse 37, thus says Yahweh, if the heavens above could be measured, and the foundations of the earth below could be investigated, then I myself shall reject all the seed of Israel on account of all that they do, averring is Yahweh. Oh, on account of all that they do. But this is no longer going to be done in account with what they do, but on account of what he does. The new covenant has not happened yet. It is a future event. This is called being born again. Being born again is the nation Israel being born in a day. It is not a good Israelite here and a good Israelite there. No, it is God putting his law in their hearts, invading their world in a very non-gentlemanly manner. Totally invading them, putting his law on their hearts. Why didn't God do that the first time? For the contrast. Absolutely necessary. Just like Paul says, first comes mortality, then comes immortality. First comes sin, then comes salvation. First comes evil, then comes eternal good. Temporary evil, eternal good. Yes, first comes the little seed planted in the ground, then comes the full plant. First comes the darkness, then comes the light. It's all in Scripture. That's the pattern. And so first comes Adam, then comes Christ. First comes the old covenant, then comes the new covenant. All necessary for contrast. God does not fail. You might say, well, Israel failed. Yes, but they failed while he was holding their hands and possessing them. What does that tell you? I'm not talking to the Israel replacement theology people, because that doesn't tell them anything, because they can't think properly. Now I want to close with a verse from Paul And God, I've read this to you many times, still can't get over it. That's so great here after having gone to Jeremiah 31. This is our new covenant. It's not a literal covenant. I shouldn't even call it that. I don't want to confuse anybody. Scratch that. It's not our covenant at all. A covenant is a deal between God and man. God does his part, man does his part. Actually, the new covenant is not a covenant either. It's not a true covenant. It's a figure of speech. The new covenant, the old covenant was not a figure of speech, because that was a covenant between God and Israel. You do your part, I do my part. The new covenant is a figure of speech because it's not you do your part, I do my part. It's God putting his law in their heart. It's a figure of speech called retention, where God is taking the old term and retaining it, using the word covenant, retaining it so that you can compare it to the old covenant. But the new covenant is not really a covenant at all. Again, the word covenant is retained just so you can associate it with the old covenant. So we are under no covenant. If the new covenant is not even freaking literal, and it's not, then what we have with God is not a covenant. And even if Paul calls it one, it's figurative all the way. It's not a deal. It's God doing it from start to finish. Verse 6, 2 Corinthians 4. Another way to say that would be 2 Corinthians 4:6. For the God who says that out of darkness light shall be shining. And he's pulling the God card out first. I like this. He pulls the God card out first. For the God who says that out of darkness light shall be shining. Oh, you mean the God who says it and it happens? Let there be light, that God? Yeah, remember that one from Genesis? Let there be light, and there was light. He speaks it into existence. Yeah, okay. The God who says that is he, same God who shines in our hearts. Well, really, the same God shines in our hearts, like the same miracle that called forth light from the darkness in Genesis is providing the light, the miracle of the light within us, yeah, with a view to the illumination of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. We're going to literally see the face of Jesus Christ. When? At the snatching away. Paul's looking forward to resurrection here. Verse 7, I'll show you that. Now we have this treasure in earthen vessels, crappy vessels, clay vessels, the potter and the clay, that the transcendence of the power may be of God and not of us. In everything being afflicted but not distressed, perplexed but not despairing, persecuted but not forsaken, cast down but not perishing, always carrying about in the body, talked about this recently, the deadening of Jesus. Why? Here it is, that the life also of Jesus may be manifested in our body. For we who are living are ever being given up to death because of Jesus, that the life also of Jesus, that's the resurrection, that the life also of Jesus, that's the resurrection, may be manifested in our mortal flesh. So what Paul is getting at here is that we will be raised from the dead. We will see the face of Christ. He will change our mortal bodies. And that's as fantastic as saying that he's going to put his law in the hearts of Israel, and they shall be his people. What? The most stubborn people that ever lived, they're going to be his people? You're promising that? Yes, I'm making a promise. How can you be sure of that? Because this is a new covenant, baby. And it's a figure of speech, baby. It's called the figure of retention. I'm doing it all from start to finish. So the same God who's going to cut that covenant, quote, unquote, covenant with Israel, the new covenant. It's not a covenant. Not a literal covenant. He's just calling it that so that you know to associate it with the old covenant. Shop and compare. That same God who says, I'm going to do it because I make the sun shine every day, says here, talking about light again, the miracle of light, the miracle of the sun, the God who says out of darkness light shall be shining. Now we're going back to Genesis. Is he who shines in our hearts with a view to the illumination, with a view toward, in the coming days, with a view toward, 2 Corinthians, lining up with, in the coming days, from Jeremiah, with a view toward what? The illumination of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. We're going to experience that. We're not experiencing it now. I haven't seen the face of Jesus Christ. Have you? No. But we will. And since we have this treasure on earthen vessels, it seems such an unlikely prospect. And yet it's going to happen. Why? Because this is the same God who says let there be light, and there was light. That's a pretty damn good resume.